So welcome. We have an update for you on a few different things. As always, our core team is here with you to be able to answer any questions that you have and to support the process of us all learning and growing together as we do something that until COVID we had never done before. And so it's a growth curve for all of us, and we really appreciate everyone's willingness to take that growth mindset to this work. What we have in mind for today are 6 different things on here. Mainly, we want to talk about Binax ordering. And so that's a key thing to talk about, but we do have a few other topics, as you can see, and we really want to get things started just by acknowledging where we are right now, that we are seeing an increase in cases across the state and in our schools. And so really what I wanted to just start by talking about today is what are we doing between DESE, HHS, and CIC to make sure that we are ready to support you as we go into this month of just seeing rising cases and being ready for that. So a few important things. One is that, we know you're looking at your data, and we encourage you to continue to do that. We really appreciate, as you're seeing concerns in rising numbers of cases in your schools, that you're reaching out to Anne-Marie Stronach on our team, to our rapid response unit, and just, bringing concerns to our attention. But what I want you to know about today is that we're also closely looking at the data. We have such great data from the testing program that we can look and see by school, where are there hotspots in the state? And so if you think about this kind of as a hierarchy, starting at the bottom and working our way up the pyramid, between DESE, HHS, and CIC, we're monitoring data on a daily basis. And CIC has put together a really powerful data tool for us to use. And then our team is able to reach out to schools and districts when we see increases coming out of our testing program as well. And so we're certainly welcoming you to call us as you see increases in cases, but just don't be surprised if you get a call from us as we peer into your data and see any increases, because we want to make sure that kind of second tier in our supports really comes into play, which is follow-up consultation and support. So if we're seeing that there are increases in cases, you might get a call from Anne-Marie Stronach, and she can talk you through, what are those next steps? What can you do to be addressing an increase in cases in your school? And or you can reach out to us to request that type of consultation and support. So either way, we just want to make sure we keep a dialogue going, that we keep a lot of open lines of communication as we see kind of a changing landscape in the way of the increasing cases in our schools. It's also really important to note that CIC has anticipated an increase in need for testing in our schools. And so they have increased the staffing that's available through the staffing agencies so that they're able to, adjust as necessary from within each of the staffing agencies. So in a sense, we're trying to be overstaffed to be ready for whatever might come as we look ahead in these weeks leading up to the holidays and after the holidays, to just be ready for that from a staffing perspective. The other thing that CIC has done is to create a mobile testing unit. So we call that the MTU, and we're just making that available in addition to the additional staffing. We also have a mobile testing unit that can be deployed across the state as necessary. And all of that is going to come up if necessary, if it's something that your school or district might need. We're going to figure that out through that consultation and support with Anne-Marie Stronach, like I was talking about before, with our rapid response team. And then finally, we have kept the Guard on reserve, and the National Guard is available for us as a state to figure out if we exhaust our other resources. And again, we've put many other steps in place, many other staffing resources in place. But if we get to a point where the need is greater than what we're able to provide through the additional staffing, through the mobile testing unit, we just want to have the Guard ready. And frankly, I'm okay if we don't use them, right? I hope that we, as much as we can really be ready with our staffing support through our staffing agencies, but we don't want to be caught flat-footed depending on where this goes in the coming weeks. And so we do have National Guard support available too. So again, our request for you is that if you're seeing, concerning numbers in your schools, feel free to reach out, feel free to ask for support, and we'll help to decide. We'll work within DESE, within HHS, and within CIC to figure out, can we, adjust staffing within the staffing agency that's working with you? Do you maybe need the mobile testing unit? And then if push comes to shove, is this a place where we really need the National Guard? So I hope that gives you a sense of what we're doing to be ready for these weeks ahead. And we really appreciate your just sort of your dedication and your persistence in getting through a challenging time. But we're going to find our way together, and we're going to use these resources well. So I hope that's helpful. And as always, we'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have about these additional supports. Just moving on to scheduling our vaccine clinics. I know we've talked about this before, and we really have appreciated seeing many requests come through for site-based vaccine clinics. And they are definitely happening across the state, but we'd love to see even more, frankly. And so we're very much encouraging you, if you haven't already, it's pretty easy just to fill out the online form that we've included a link to in our PowerPoint. And then just know that, it takes about 14 days to, before that clinic is going to be deployed on site. And, again, we'll have a back and forth, or there's sort of other, via email to just confirm everything. But if you've worked with a provider and you've had a positive experience in the past, just note that on your request so that we can try to match you up with that provider again for that on-site vaccine clinic. And then we'll just walk you through any other parts of the process, like the consent process and the scheduling platform, once you've gone ahead and made that request for the vaccine clinic. Jeremiah, anything to add about vaccine clinics and getting them scheduled?
Jeremiah is not able to join us, but Sean Burpo is here from HHF. So Sean, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Nothing to add, Russell.
It's good. I read the team's message the wrong way. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So let's talk about BinaxNOW and some other program updates. And Sean, great segue to the good work that you do around the numbers, our data. So we will be producing our data report again this week. This is what it's going to look like today when it comes out. Just want to call out 2 important points. And Sean, if there's anything else you want to add. I just think it's so inspiring to think about the numbers of days that you've saved by implementing test and stay throughout the state. 208,000 days saved. That's amazing. That really is making a difference in the lives of children in our state. And I'm so grateful for every single one of these days that you have maintained safe in-person learning because of test and stay. I think the other thing of note is that we do see an increase in our positivity rate through pooled testing. But keep in mind that it's still much lower than the overall state positivity rate. When I check, the 7-day rate for the state is 5.14%. We're at just under 2% in our schools. So again, it's showing us repeatedly that our schools are very safe places. We do not have the same positivity rate in schools that we do in the broader community. Sean, anything to add about the data?
Just very quickly, Russell, on that last point you made around the 2%, and that's the pool positivity rate. So, we assume that there are 6 or 7 people, or 6.76 individuals in each pool. And if you say 1 or 2 of those, usually one person in that pool tests positive. So actually the individual positivity rate is actually much lower, which I think is just kind of reaffirming the point you made, Russell, that, the transmission is, while it's, I think, admittedly higher than it was in the spring, it is still quite low. So just, I think, all positive signs.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I really appreciate that reminder. It's always good to come back to what the data are telling us. Thank you. So here's the main event for today about BinaxNOW ordering. Our goal is just to make sure that you have a very steady supply of BinaxNOW. And there's really not a lot that you have to do here, but there are a few things. I think we've really tried to simplify this process to make it as easy as possible. There are BinaxNOW kits, though, that are expiring in December. So it's December, it's early December. We want to make sure that we're just calling your attention to take a look at your supply and to make sure that you're ready to hopefully use up as much of the expiring kits as you can this month, but then be putting in your orders for new kits so that you'll have them in 2022 as we come back from the December break and you're ready to continue on using BinaxNOW. So again, there's not a lot that you have to do other than just being kind of on top of your own supply and monitoring your own supply. So when you place an order as of today, you're going to get new tests that have 2022 expiration dates. So I think that'll be easy for you. Again, nothing that you have to do to make sure that you're ordering the right test with the right expiration date. We've just switched over. We're just switching over to make sure that you're getting kits with later expiration dates. So again, take a look at your kits, figure out, do you need to order more? And then as you're, like I said before, if you've got, you'll start to maybe towards the end of this month, start getting in the 2022 expiration date kits. We just ask that you use up the 2021 first, obviously. So let's burn through as much of the 2021 kits as you can, get through those. And we know though that you might end up with some supply left over. There could be some 2021 expiration date kits that you'll still have on hand. For right now, we just ask that you not dispose of them. We'll follow up as we get more information about that. There could be more information forthcoming from Abbott Labs about those expiration dates, and so we just ask that you hold on to them. Hopefully, they won't be taking up too much storage space, because we'll want you to burn through as many as you can before the end of the month, as needed. But Sean, anything more about what's happening right now in this transition between 2021 and 2022?
No, Russell, and I just emphasize that the program coordinators from CIC have received the same information, and I know for the vast majority of you all, the program coordinators are the ones who are placing orders. So they have the same information. So they and they have their directive on how to kind of proceed. So I think that's all, Russell.
Great. And as we noted here on this slide, the next slide actually gives you that reminder of how to order your supply, how to order tests and supplies. So I'm not going to go over this. We've shown this to you before, but if you just need that go-to place to grab the video or just the directions, we've just gone ahead and reminded you of them here. So hope you'll find that useful. A few things to further add though about our supply and your reordering process. Just keep in mind that, there is a lot of shipping demand around the holidays in December. And so just know that you might have a 1 to 2 day delay. So, again, as you're watching your supply, just make sure that you are ordering well in advance of when you might run out, so that you're not experiencing any problem related to, the December related delay that affects all of the mail right now, right? So we just want to make sure that you are looking ahead to be ready and place that order as early as you can. Also, just as always, a reminder to please log your results, because we need to make sure we have both those positive and negative results in the testing software. Again, just really helps us to know how the program's working. And it's just a key requirement for the program. So keep logging those results. We see the numbers going up. We really appreciate the work that you're doing. And so just keep that going. And then the last thing to note about eMed is that if you're ordering eMed kits, they will not be shipped if you need them for 2022 expiration dates. Those are not going to be shipped until later December because of some supply restrictions. So, just again, watching your supply, knowing that we're not going to ship those until a little bit later. But again, hopefully you have a lot of what you need through December. We're down to the final weeks of this school year, of this calendar year. And so hopefully that will help you with getting through the rest of this month. Sean, back over to you one more time though about the supply and the ordering topics, just to reinforce.
Nope. And just regarding eMed, just those are the ones that are used on the weekend typically for extracurricular activities. And it's just a supply thing where we just don't have any of the 2022 expiration dates. We have an order coming in, but they'll not be here till later in the month.
Yeah, great. Thanks,
Russell,
Sean.
if I could just reiterate one thing. So we are asking districts to use the BinaxNOW tests in the order that they expire. And then once they do expire, to just set them aside, because we do have the 2022 tests ready to be delivered and shipped out. And so we have heard from some districts or from some schools that they're trying to use up as many of the BinaxNOW test kits as possible before they expire. And we really do not want people to go outside of our protocols just to use the BinaxNOW tests. So please just put them aside. There's no need to just use them all up because they're expiring. We will be able to deliver you 2022 tests and you can just hold on to them and we will let you know what to do with those expired tests later. But please do not go out of our protocols just to use up the tests.
Yep, really good point. Thanks, Lauren. So let's look ahead to some questions that might come up about winter weather. And so we just know that, again, it's New England, we're going to have weather. and there could be delays, there could be cancellations. So we just want to make sure that we're thinking ahead about anticipating how that might affect our testing schedules. Keeping in mind that the schedule is really at your discretion as the school leaders as well as the on-site support team. So, just talking together now about how it's going to work if there's a delay or if there is a cancellation due to a weather event. So if we have a delay, we just think that, it's likely that you're not going to have any testing that would occur before school opens won't happen, but trying to maintain the schedule once school is open for the day, just trying to get back on the schedule for the rest of the day. So those, the school might miss whatever was scheduled from like 8 to 10 in the morning, but then from 10 on, hopefully you're just back on your regular schedule. So if there's a delay for the school day, we hope it's just a delay for testing as well. And if there is, a weather cancellation, a snow day, obviously testing is not going to occur on that day, and then just resume your normal schedule once school reopens. And if we can get out to the schools that may be missed because of the snow day, great. If it's possible, if not, we'll just pick those schools up again next week. We might end up missing a week if a school, for example, had their pooled testing schedule on one of the snow days. Lauren, anything else to add or reinforce that?
Nope, I think you covered it, Russell.
All right. Well, keep me honest on the next slide. I'm sure that I do justice to this one as well. So, we last year when we implemented the program, we had February break and December break. I'm sorry, February and April break. This year, we had Thanksgiving for the first time, that midweek break, and it raised a lot of questions about test and stay and what happens when it falls, when the seventh day of testing falls over an extended break. So let's just imagine the December break coming up, and you have a student who gets days 1, 2, and 3 in school, but then school is now closed for a week or more because of the December break. They'll come back after the 10th day, right? So they're going to come back after day 10. And the question has come up, do you kind of resume testing in January, right? Like January 3rd or whenever we come back to school in January. Are you going to pick back up with day 4 or just wrap up the testing and do one final test when the students come back in January if they started before the break? The answer is no. So let's think about this for a second. We're following 2 protocols, right? So if we use if a student has been exposed and is following test and stay, they're on a 7-day kind of a monitoring period with testing. If they're not, so that's why we use 7 days, right, with test and stay. If you're not tested following our protocol, so any student who's not in test and stay, who goes home to quarantine, and they don't get tested, that our protocol B3 calls for the student coming back on the 10th day. So if there's a break, right, like the December break that's coming up, and you're going to go past day 7 and even past, up to day 10, you would test the student if you're still within that kind of a 10-day window, right? But if you go over the 10-day window, you're not going to test the student when they come back on day 11, day 12, anything after day 10, you are not going to continue to test the student when they come back. And this is one of those ones that's slightly complicated. And so, Lauren, is there anything you would reiterate there or state differently just to make sure we're clear on this?
No, I think that's right, Russell. I mean, what we put in bold is the most important part. So if the 7th day falls on a non-school day, they return to school within the 10 days of the date of exposure, they should get tested on the next school day. And then if they return to school on day 11 or later from the date of exposure, they don't need to have a final test to return to school.
And Lauren, this is we're putting this in the presentation now. And do you just want to say where people can find this in the future?
Right. So this will be released in a new FAQ that will go out on Monday in the Commissioner's Weekly Update, and will be posted to our FAQ page on the DESE website, which I can also put into the chat.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. We've also had questions about participation in testing by vaccinated students. So just a reminder, what's in our protocols right now is that vaccinated students, fully vaccinated students who are asymptomatic are exempt from testing and quarantine protocols. Vaccinated students, staff and students can participate in pooled testing if they submit their consent forms, but the state doesn't recommend this. But by doing so, it is a local decision. It's not something we recommend, but it's not something that we will say that you can't do, for example. And then with a concern about breakthrough cases, we've heard about what happens though if a vaccinated individual does show symptoms. And of course, if a vaccinated individual shows symptoms, we do want them to follow our guidance about how do we treat symptomatic individuals. Lauren, this is something we're going to have more information about in that upcoming FAQ. So maybe just as a placeholder for people to come back and read what we put out on Monday about monitoring vaccinated individuals for symptoms.
That's right, Russell. And just for people to know, we did write students on this, but we are talking about any vaccinated individual. So this applies to staff and students. And so when we do send out the slides at the end of the presentation, you'll see that change in the slides.
Yeah, good point. Thank you. Good catch. So let's just mention though as well that in the CIC portal, if you want to optionally track who's vaccinated, if you have that information, there is a way to do that within the CIC portal to, again, so that you're kind of aligning information about who has consent for testing with, who's vaccinated. You can put that all in one place if you use the CIC portal for that. And helpfully the CIC team has put together a video that we've included the link to here so that you're able to come in here and watch how to do that, how to track vaccination status in the CIC portal using that video. So we hope you find that helpful and something to use as you go forward. Sorry, go ahead. All right. A couple of updates about contact tracing. Hold on. So one of the questions we've had about contact tracing is if there's an exposure in school, right? So if a student comes to school and is positive, right? So if student A comes into school and student A tests positive and exposes other students, the students who student A exposes can participate in test and stay. But if student A has siblings at home, those siblings, and student A went home obviously and exposed the siblings at home, those siblings do not participate in test and stay. Those siblings would need to follow our protocols guidance for anyone who's exposed outside of school. And I know there's been some confusion about that. And so just keeping in mind that the why on that is that we just know, and like our data showed us, and Sean was reiterating, the level of risk inside schools is obviously lower than it is community-wide. And so we're taking on a level of risk to some extent by allowing test and stay to occur. And we want to make sure we do what is kind of the right level of risk, right? The right level of risk is to say it's worth doing test and stay for in-school exposures because we know that there's much less transmission in schools. But we don't feel the same way about community-based exposures. And so that's why there's a line between the two. But this has been a question that's come up a lot. Lauren, anything to quickly add there?
Nope, I think that's right. And this is just obviously applies to unvaccinated individuals because, as we just mentioned in the slide before, vaccinated individuals are not subject to our protocols and can stay in school.
Great, thanks, Lauren. Getting down to the end here, we've mentioned before that we are very supportive of research that Dr. Sandra Nelson and Dr. Andrea Cirinello are doing from MGH to help look at contact tracing and to look at exposures in schools. And so they are continuing to gather data. It's de-identified data. It has the support of an internal review board. And so if you are willing to share your data using a standardized spreadsheet, they're looking to have those data collected by December 10th. And so again, the links are in the PowerPoint here. And if you can, just, take this information, fill it out, and then sending it in to Drs. Nelson and Cirinello will be very useful to their research. And it's been very helpful for us as we create policy as well. As always, we just want to review the resources that the Shaw Family Foundation has created, such as the cheat sheets they have for the software platforms, the Open and Safe Schools website. And then as we just look ahead to next steps, always where to find the information. And then finally, just to reiterate that, we are seeing this increase in cases. And so we really need to be ready. And we always just want to remind you that as you're seeing an increase in cases, always go to your program coordinator first. If you feel like, this is getting a little ahead of us, we might need more support. Your first line of defense is definitely your program coordinator to ask, can your staffing agency provide us with more support? Start there. If there's any additional concern, you can escalate by following the additional bullets that we have here, but always start with your program coordinator. They're ready to help you. That's it for our presentation for today. I know that we have very limited time, but Lauren, just curious to see what questions there might be.
Great, Russell. So actually there's one question for you, Sean, about the mobile vaccine clinics and wondering if there's a capacity limit there or if it can really be broad.
That's a good question, Lauren. I believe it can be broad. I do know there is a minimum where there is a request that we always have, I believe between 10 to 15, don't quote me on that number, but there is a minimum that, obviously you can't predict how many people are going to be there, but like an estimate of how many will be there. But I do believe you are asked in the form of how many people you anticipate. And if it's too big, if it's too big, someone will reach out to you to kind of schedule logistics and work around it. So, just put the number you think that is most accurate in there, and someone will work with you to work it all out.
Great. And then there are some questions, Russell, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but wondering if there's going to be any guidance from the MIAA about winter sports, if we anticipate anything coming down the pike.
I'll have to follow up on that. I don't off the top of my head, but we have a good relationship there, obviously. So glad to follow up.
Okay, great. So there are a lot of specific questions to unique scenarios that are happening in different schools and districts that are coming in through the chat. And so I highly recommend that districts and individuals who are writing into the chat either submit their questions to the K through 12 COVID-19 testing inbox, or to call the Rapid Response Help Center, and we can walk through all of your specific questions and your unique scenarios, because it's going to be difficult for us to be able to answer those questions in this format here today.
Absolutely. Lauren, I'm just noticing I don't often have a chance to look much at the chat that comes directly to me, but just a reminder with the holiday week coming that if you can't complete the whole process of pool testing to run the pools and follow up with the positive results, then we say actually don't do it. So if that's a short week for you, if you are only in school for a couple of days, just like Thanksgiving week, then if you can't finish it, if you can't run the process of the pools and get the results and follow up with anyone who might be positive while school is open, we would say don't run pool testing for that school. If you can complete the process and do the reflex testing and find positive individuals, that's great. What we don't want to have happen is for positive pools to come back and have no way to figure out who the positive individual was over the December vacation. So just want to put that out there really quickly. And then I've seen a lot of questions about holiday concerts, and just a quick reminder that, we do, the mask requirement is in effect. And so students do need to be masked at all times unless you apply for a waiver from us and have that 80% threshold. Thanks everyone so much. Hope you gained something from this kind of sprint webinar today, and we'll look forward to seeing you. If we don't have another webinar before the end of this calendar year, we look forward to seeing you in 2022. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the day.